All right, welcome folks, and there's quite a few people on the screen as well. I'm Megan Roy, I'm the chair of the commission. We will jump in. Hold on, I think we're working on making sure folks on the screen are muted, because otherwise we might hear you. Welcome to public input session. Before I kick us off, I want to just say thank you to South Burlington School District for hosting us. We are super excited to see the folks in the room. We had our open meeting this morning, earlier this afternoon, and we have a member of the South Burlington School District Board, the student rep, who is going to come and welcome us and share a few words. So Gracie Morris, do you want to come up? Everyone. My name is Gracie Morris. I'm a senior student board rep on the South Burlington School Board, and I just want to welcome you all into the South Burlington School District. So, as education changes has a focus in the legislature, I, along with my co-student representative, Allie, who wasn't able to be here today, and along with some other student board reps, particularly one in Burlington who's here today, Annie, one in Cashel who is a rep the Harwood board, and then also a rep named Zoe who's on the CBSD board. Would like to encourage you all to really think about students when you are talking today. These policy changes will directly impact students, as you all know. And while we often talk about education bonding changes as just a number that we want to see, we really also want you to think about how your discussion will impact the day-to-day lives of students. So we've been working with Megan, the commission chair, to really amplify student voice in both the commission, and then we've also been working beyond that. We testified in front of the House Ed Committee, which was really exciting. And so thinking about students, we also hope that you guys can talk to your own kids if you have them at home, see what changes they want to make, and then also really encourage students that you know to get involved and talk about their own experiences to legislators and change makers in the commission who can really impact our experiences. So yeah, thank you all for coming today, and keep that in mind. Thank you. List on the screen. I suspect we have a lot of students on the screen. And as I hope you'll hear as we go on, we want to keep that going so that this isn't just the first time that we have that conversation. Before we kick off and kind of talk about tonight, I do just want to acknowledge that it's possible that a number of folks joining us, either here or online, are here because of the recent guidance around Title VI of the Civil Rights Act and the state's response to that. That work is not the commission's work, right? The commission does not have authority to make recommendations. However, we understand that it is intricately connected to this conversation about education. I do not believe the secretary is joining us online tonight. We do want to make sure that we give adequate time for this important conversation, but we do have an opportunity for public comment at the end of today's meeting. It should be around 6:30. So if folks are here to share a perspective about that, we would encourage you to do that. We're a little bit afraid that if we kick off the meeting that way, we won't be able to have a good conversation around education transformation. And I don't know if the secretary is joining us later. It really is not the commission who makes decisions around that, but we understand that it's difficult to disconnect those two.
Megan, can you hear
Yeah.
me? This is Jennifer Samuelson. We don't have public comment on the agenda for tonight. At least
That might not be on the agenda, but there is time. We plan on ending around 6:30, Jennifer, to be able to.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, here's what we hope to do tonight. In a second, we'll introduce the commission membership and we will talk a little bit, hopefully not spend too much time talking at you, but we do want to give you a little bit of background around who we are and what our job is, what we've been asked to do. We also want to give an update about what's happening in state government and how that is and isn't changing what we've been asked to do. To sort of acknowledge that we're in a really dynamic time around policy. So we will give you a little bit of an update. And then we really want to gather input. So we are organized in the physical space around tables because we want you to be able to talk at tables. There's a commission member at every table to be able to take notes and facilitate that. We have our communication and engagement consultants are facilitating the online portion. That'll sort of run parallel to this so that everyone gets the same update, but that one will be facilitated by that. And then we'll have time at the end of right? So introductions, I'm going to have commission members stand up and introduce themselves. Again, I'm Megan Roy. I'm the chair of the commission. I'm also a South Burlington resident and I have 2 kids in school here. And I am on the commission because of a past role on the census-based funding advisory group, which was Vermont's change in special ed. And I'm just going to pick on Jeff because he's right in front of me.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Big evening, and I'm Jeff Penn, the Executive Director of Vermont NEA.
Everyone,
Thanks so much. I'm Rebecca Samroff. I'm the Deputy Commissioner of the Vermont Department of Taxes from Berlin. I have 2 little kids that are school age.
Mike McLeod, the Superintendent of Harwood Unified Union School District. So I work for districts in Waterbury, Duxbury, and Bay River Valley, and I'm here as a representative.
I'm Peter Collins. I'm the chair of the association. And I'm here as the appointee of the block. John Castle, I'm the executive director for the Vermont Rural Education Collaborative. We work with 8 supervisory unions and supervisory districts in the Northeast Kingdom. Good evening, everybody. Jay Nichols, executive director of the Vermont Principals Association, former fellow principal of Tel Middle School, South Burlington, and I'm a representative.
and we have several commission members joining us online. I know folks in the room, you can't see their faces, but I am going to have them introduce themselves anyway. Jennifer, you're first on my screen.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Deck Samuelson. I'm the chair of the State Board of Education.
I might just have you other members pop up because I can't actually see you. It's a little risky to do it that way. We have other commission members online. I think I'm just going to introduce on their behalf. So Oliver Olson is a representative on the commission representing the Vermont Independent Schools Association. Elizabeth Jennings is our representative for the Vermont Association of School Business Officials. And Ann Cummings is the Senate appointee to this commission. And Zoe Saunders is on the commission, Secretary of Education. And I believe that's everyone. Okay. I really am going to try not to talk at you for very long, but I do think grounding your conversations tonight a little bit in what the work has been and where we are now will be helpful. So the commission was convened in July of 2024 after the legislative session last year. And this is our charge. I'm going to read it because it's really small. The commission shall study the provision of education in Vermont and make recommendations for a statewide vision for Vermont's public education system to ensure that all students are afforded substantially equal educational opportunities in an efficient, sustainable, and stable education system. That is a lofty charge. There's a lot of words in there, and there's a lot of detail underneath there. So we are a legislatively convened group, and our job is to make recommendations to the legislature. We have a pretty concrete list in the law of what we are asked to do. We needed to develop a work plan and a communication plan. We did that back in September. We actually have a revised work plan that we just adopted today. We needed to issue a preliminary findings report. We did that in December. We do have a website, and all of the materials, if you are interested in reading, are on our website. We are asked to submit draft recommendations for public comment in October of this year, a final findings report in December of this year, and proposed legislative language by December of this year. And we sunset at the end of 2025. That was our original charge. In about 2 slides, I'm going to try to explain where we are now, because it is arguably a little bit different than what we were asked to do. But before I do that, if folks on the screen are able to stay muted, otherwise we can hear some of your side conversations. So we recognize as a commission, and we organized our work this way several months ago. I think this way of organizing the work has stayed. This is how we are looking at it. We know we need to look at our education finance system. We also understand that we need to look at our education governance and how we administer and resource education. And then we are doing that with a focus on education quality. We knew when we started this work that in order to make any kind of recommendations, we needed to ground those recommendations in a set of guiding principles. So what are the lenses we're going to look through to do our work? The first thing we just wanted to acknowledge is that in Vermont, education is the responsibility of the state. The state constitution asks Vermont to provide education, public education, on behalf of its students. And Vermont chooses to delegate a lot of that to local entities. There's a tension between state responsibility and local decision making. So we acknowledge that as a commission, that that's part of our
Excuse me, Maureen, the room went silent.
I don't know how that happened.
Yep, now we're back on. Yes, thank you.
I promise I didn't push that button. And we have a guiding principle of sustainability and affordability. We know that that's part of our conversation. So we think it's important for those coming to give us input to know that this is how we grounded our work. So, changing landscape. The commission was convened because at the time, this deep study and series of developing recommendations seemed like the best way to address this really complicated challenge that is Vermont education, right? However, we know there are proposals right now. There's House bills, there's Senate bills, there is the governor's proposal. These all exist. There's a typo here, but these exist outside of the commission, right? And debate on those proposals is ongoing. So that's happening even while we have this charge to do our work. And some might say there's a mismatch between those two timelines in particular. The legislature is even discussing whether or not it makes sense to narrow our charge or make our charge more focused. But also, that doesn't happen until a law is passed. So right now, we're still moving toward that original big, long charge. We are committed to being helpful to the legislature. That's our job. We got a question earlier today about, well, who actually is making these decisions, right? We are trying as hard as we can to be useful to the legislature as they move forward their discussions. And we are hoping to organize ourselves that way. We also know that the legislature wants us to use our communication and engagement structure, and this is only one kind of event to do that, in order to gather input and feedback. So we will use input to gather, and we will gather input and it will inform our work, and we will share that back to the legislature. They also may have mechanisms that they are using to gather input, right? So I'm just sort of acknowledging that we are in an interesting place. And with that, I'm gonna skip clarifying questions just because of the size of our group. You have a commission member at every one of your tables. and folks on the screen have some commission members on the screen. So if you have like a burning technical question, feel free to ask your rep on the screen. But here's what we're gonna do for tonight. First, it is our goal to bring as many voices to the conversation as possible. It's really important that whatever changes we make reflect the wisdom of all of Vermont. This is not the only vehicle for doing that. We're here in Chittenden County. We have a lot of people on the screen, but these are imperfect ways of getting input. And that is part of why we've asked Afton Partners, they are our communication consultant, to help us design more and better input opportunities, including working with students to say, how do we get student voices in for those who aren't able to come to a session like this, even though we're really glad that you're here. So just understand this is not the only opportunity for input. So what we're going to do in a second, the folks online, and it may take a few minutes to organize that, but they will sort of be facilitated until 6:30 on their own. Afton Partners is going to facilitate them. So I'm kind of directing this to the folks in the room. You are already at table groups. There's a commission member per table. We're going to put a discussion prompt up on the screen, and you're going to talk at your table about that prompt. Your commission rep is the one taking notes, and we'll keep track of time, which will be a little tricky, but we'll move you forward to another set of discussion questions, and you'll just continue at your table. I think we're a big enough group that you're just going to stay at your same table. Usually we would have you mix tables, but I think then we'll be wandering too long. Okay, at the end, there will be a QR code and a link if you're someone who's accessing online for an exit survey, if you would like. We'd like to learn more about who's here. How many students are here? How many are parents? How many are community members? How many are educators? All of the above, and a couple of other questions. So if you're interested, there is an exit survey. Okay. So the first set of questions at your table. What are the most important outcomes you want Vermont's public education system to achieve for students, families, and communities? And what barriers do you see in Vermont's current education system that get in the way of either equity?
Excuse me, Maureen, we lost the audio again in the room. Maureen?
Hey, Suzanne, we're back. Sorry about that. So we're going to now move the virtual participants into breakout rooms, correct?
Okay, we're all coming back together now.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
So again, we realize we're cutting good conversation short. We are trying to respect the fact that we know a lot of folks came to share their perspective on something not necessarily related to that, and we want to give time and space. And we did sort of share that we don't, as a commission, necessarily have responsibility for this, but we think it's important for you to be able to share. I would also say, and I am sad, but we had a group of students, we still have students here, but some had to leave. And I know that that was a big reason why they were here. So here's what we're going to attempt to do. It will be imperfect because we have a lot of people on the screen. What we've done in past sessions is just treat this like public comment, just because there may be a lot of you who want to speak. So we will kind of time you. I'm going to start with about 3 minutes each and see how that goes. We can always circle back if we don't fill the entire time. We have a hard stop at 7 because I think shortly after that, the door is automatically locked. So we will try to keep to that. And what we do is alternate between the folks in the room and the folks on the screen. So people on the screen who want to have 3 minutes, and you don't have to, but if you want to, just raise your hand and that will put you in the queue for us. And I'm just going to go back and forth. And the same thing with people in the room. And I am gonna start with the students that are left in case they have more to share. And if not, then we'll keep going, and it's same if there are students on the screen. But yes, so go ahead and pop your hands up. Tracy, do you have anything to add? And you don't have to, and I don't. Do either of you want to kick us off?
Well, I kind of have an idea I was thinking about.
Awesome. Put it out there.
Should I stand up?
Yes, and share who you are so that for the record, your name gets recorded.
I'm Andy Cart. I'm a junior at Burlington High School, and I'm the student rep on the Burlington School District School Board. And as we were talking, I was thinking a lot about like what my role is as a student representative and how I'm just one person with only one experience. And how I think it'd be really important to go to lots of different schools and give presentations and talk about this like legislative framework and bite-sized pieces that everyone understands. And it's really confusing. It's confusing to me. And I'm one of like the oldest people in the district. And so I think I was just getting motivated to go and maybe grade your other students and get their input, because I think I don't want to undermine the value that kindergartners have in this process. Because everyone, has experience in the district. And I just feel really motivated right now to go out and learn from them and collect that data and just bring it back and hopefully make the changes.
I completely agree, and I think even encouraging the commission to go out and present to schools, and even if you don't have time for that, maybe send out a survey that really gets at tangible questions that you're looking at in terms of changes or just like kind of niche topics that students can really like talk about. And I think sending that out to superintendents and then dispersing that would be really valuable data, and you get a really kind of holistic data set from students. So I really encourage you guys to do that.
All right, I'm gonna go to Susan Schoenfeld. I may not be saying your last name properly, but you can unmute and go ahead. If you want to turn your camera on, we can see you if you would like us to.
Hi. Thank you. There's quite an echo.
We don't, hold on just a second. Susan, we don't hear you yet, but we see that you're unmuted. Try again.
Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
I was really very upset, sort of appalled when I heard about the letter from the Agency of Education to schools about wanting them to sign to comply to the
Susan, you're muted. Sorry.
Okay.
There you go. Yep. We heard most of it.
I'll start at the beginning. I'm really quite appalled and upset about the message from the Agency of Education sent to schools asking them to agree to comply to the current views on diversity, equity, and inclusion that the Department of Education is espousing. I understand from the letter that they don't think it's a contradiction, but I think it creates a huge degree of confusion for teachers and students. They shouldn't have to double think whether what they're doing is correct, because there's already a lot of wonderful programs and teaching going on that could that are try to address diversity, inclusion, and equity. And I'd hate to see those stifled or teachers being afraid to teach because of this compliance. I think the Department of Education could, or our agency could follow the leadership of New York State, Massachusetts, and Maine, who are stating that they do not think this is a legal request from the government and they are not going to sign it, and they're supporting their teachers in this.
Hear, hear.
That's it. Thanks.
sorry, I saw your hand first.
Thank you. Stand up, please. Everybody, my name is Nick Kennedy. I'm a teacher, a ninth grade teacher at CPU. Also a co-advisor for our school's Gender and Sexuality Alliance, or GSA. And I just also want to build off of this conversation a little bit and remind everybody about the advantages of a strong and courageous stance on DEI. And one of those advantages, of course, is being able to provide gender and sexuality affirming programming and resources to students who need them. LGBTQ students are more than twice as likely to engage in suicidal ideation, according to the Canadian Institute of Health. I'm sorry I had to get this research from Canada. It's no longer available on our own government's website. The Trevor Project, an American LGBTQ Research Center, homeless youth support network, and AIDS education nonprofit, places the number of LGBTQ teens who attempt suicide as 4 times more likely than their peers. In particular, Black and transgender young people report disproportionate rates of suicide risk, with 58% seriously considering suicide and 1 in 4 attempting suicide per year since 2020. Both studies point out that the solution to this average risk of suicide is the inclusion of DEI programming, such as Gay Straight Alliance. Here's a quote. Schools have a responsibility to create safe and supportive environments for all their students, and these interventions are strategies that may help some of their most vulnerable students survive. Ms. Saunders, I know she's not here, but I need to address this to her because she is the one directing some of the stuff to our school boards. If there's a time that she is going to actually listen and learn from the people of Vermont, I hope that they hear me when I say that what they are doing is currently laying the groundwork for more school-age students to commit suicide by asking districts to comply with Donald Trump's anti-Black, anti-queer, and fundamentally anti-education agenda. Stop the nonsense, the backbone. This is a brave little state.
Go to Becky on the screen and then here, and here. But Becky A, you can unmute and turn your camera on if you'd like.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to say, under no uncertain terms, we should stand up for the students of Vermont, stand up for the values we share in Vermont. I realize the Secretary of Education is arguing that Vermont's legal reading of the letters and law allows districts to continue doing what they're doing with DEI, but this 100% underestimates the venom with which this administration is going after schools and children. The certification threatens substantial liabilities, litigation, and recovery of past funds. Further, it specifically threatens that signing the certification and then continuing to have DII practices will subject educational entities to the False Claims Act and further civil litigation and penalties. The administration's pitting one group of vulnerable children against another. There's nothing legal, moral, or ethical about this threat. Certifying this lie to the federal government will open a door that cannot be closed. Our students will hear loud and clear that the adults responsible for their education cowed in the face of bullies and sacrificed them because they didn't have the guts to take a stand. Please do the right thing. I see now that districts do not need to do it because Vermont's doing it for them, but Vermont is making the wrong choice. Do the right thing as our neighbors, New York State is doing. Our kids are watching. Thank you.
My name is Kate Bailey. I'm a South Burlington resident and community member, and I'm former member and chair of the South Burlington School Board. I want to make a direct connection between what we talked about tonight, the future of public education and the Scott administration's education transformation policy and this DEI policy, because if we go with Governor Scott's education transformation policy, we are banking on cost savings by consolidating decision-making power with the Agency of Education, making it more streamlined and more efficient. And this example is why we cannot trust the Agency of Education to look out for what is best for us. So this is actually on Governor Scott and the Scott administration, of which Zoe Saunders is a part of. She's asking the requirement of every district in the state to certify compliance with the Trump administration's latest federal order and his new politically charged interpretation of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act that our schools have been already complying with since the law passed in 1964. We already comply. The latest federal order does not change the law, and it is the court's job to determine any new interpretations or precedent. Secretary Saunders and the Scott administration have asked our school districts to dedicate hours of staff time and thousands of dollars in legal fees for our council to essentially read a crystal ball and predict what will save us from losing federal funding. This is at best a waste of time, and at worst, this is creating a new precedent, insinuating that there are districts who are not compliant. The Agency of Education has a choice. They could stand up for state and local control over our curriculum and defend our students and educators, as Maine, Massachusetts, and New York have done. They can say no. They can rescind this request for districts to certify, or the agency can stay the course and continue to pass the buck, the liability, and the responsibility to the school districts and our educators, whose jobs are to educate, not litigate. If this is a sign of things to come from the Scott administration's education transformation plan, this is not the best interest of our students, our educators, or our democracy.
Don't see a hand on the screen, so I'm gonna go to the next person in the room, which I think is that table. I'm not gonna remember who had their hand up first.
I'm Matt Guile. I'm the librarian for the Winooski School District, and there are attacks on libraries and librarians, read and read, talk to country. As librarian for Winooski School District, I've intentionally built a collection in our library that represents the identities, experiences of our students, and I want to feel that the state has my back. And Secretary Saunders' capitulation to Trump's anti-DEI executive order does not make it feel like they got my back. It makes me feel like I'm getting thrown under the bus. Secretary Saunders needs to stand up for the students and educators in this state and fight for the values that are embodied in Vermont public education. And if she can't do that, she needs to resign.
Screen, so I'm gonna go to Denise, and then I think you were next, and then, yeah. Go ahead, Denise.
I'll be quick. I just want to mirror what everybody else has said and officially state we cannot succumb to the bullies. We must stand strong with other states and show that this brave little state knows what to do in terms of doing the right thing.
Hi, my name is Dan Kilcoyle, sociologist. I just wanted to discuss a few things here tonight on public education. We voted in November for property tax relief, but we did vote to fire thousands of teachers, close dozens of schools, increase class sizes, abolish our democratic school boards, privatize our public schools. There was no mandate for any of those reforms. On class size, we are hearing the governor wants to increase class size at a minimum class size. There's not a shred of evidence to back up any of these assertions. We look at the most expensive private schools in this country. They have very small class sizes. The research shows that small classes are good for children. They have positive impacts on student engagement, on achievement. They reduce equity gaps across social class and race, and they improve graduation rates and college attendance rates. Small classes are good for children and educators. On the issue of consolidation, there's been a lot of research on consolidation of school closures around the country. The research is very conclusive in rural areas that school consolidation is not cost efficient in producing lower costs. And a study in New York indicated that when two nearby small districts merged, there were some savings on administrative costs, but few savings on transportation and instructional expenses. And when the administration talks about $184 million in savings, that money is going to come directly from the people who educate our children on a daily basis. That is the gutting of the educational workforce of this state. And if we talk about Act 46, where's the evidence? Is there any evidence that that law led to budget savings and reduced property taxes? Is there any evidence that that law improved educational outcomes for students? There's not any evidence on any of those metrics that the law has actually done better for Vermont students. We're operating in the dark and failing to rely on evidence and research to make these fundamental decisions. So our schools are not fiscally irresponsible. Year after year, they have made difficult cuts to staff and programs to balance budgets amid skyrocketing healthcare costs. If we are going to reduce property taxes, we must address the biggest driver of cost, and that is healthcare. Costs have increased to make up 15% of school budgets and are set to hit 20% within years. So that is where we need to direct our energies and resources to making reforms in our healthcare industry. Now, I'm going to join the rest of the speakers and say that I'm outraged that Secretary Saunders, supported by the Attorney General, is ordering school districts to provide certifications to comply with DEI, anti-DEI efforts. I applaud the superintendent of the Winooski District in refusing to comply with the time to capitulate to this tyrant in the White House. Now is not the time to throw our children and educators under the bus and collaborate with this fascist agenda. Secretary Saunders and Attorney General Clark should follow the lead of New York State in refusing to comply with the Trump administration's illegal directive. I have a copy of the New York State letter right here. She should submit this exact letter on behalf of Vermont students and educators. If we give into this administration now, what is next? What is the next insane, illegal policy they will require schools to comply with? It is time for Vermont to grow a spine and stand up for our students and educators, and Secretary Saunders, Eastern side. Thank you.
I'm gonna go with Kathleen Bruce online and then over here, and then we'll keep going. Kathleen, you can unmute and turn your camera on if you would like.
I can't figure out how to do the camera thing, but I am a retired nurse of 42 years, and I am a substitute school nurse. And I was in CVU today, and I would like to ask the governor and Zoe Saunders to not sign that letter and to not comply with the bullying that is coming down from Washington. I would like to see us continue to support all students, no matter what color they are and what their sexuality. I don't care if they're pink or purple. I do not want to hurt children because somebody is having a temper tantrum in Washington. So please do not comply. Let's be like New York State and say, hell no. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathleen. Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Mary Gibbons. I'm a retired teacher. I live in Burlington. I just want to make a correction. I believe that our Attorney General, Charity Clark, has advised people not to comply with Saunders' directive.
That recently, it just came out, just like
Previous to that, she also advised people not to. She's on our side about all of this. I just want to say from a different perspective about the DEI thing. It is crystal clear that Trump and his minions are pursuing a course of erasure in this country, a course of erasure about everyone who is not a cis white male. And I do not, as a resident of Vermont or in this country, want Vermont to be part of that system of erasure for our students, for our communities, for all of us. So resisting this DEI thing is critically important in terms of not being part of embracing so many.
I don't see additional hands on the screen, so I'm gonna go, yep, to you in the back.
I apologize for being late. I'm probably the least prepared with my words, they won't be as eloquent. However, I'm outraged. I'm a parent. I've had children in Vermont schools from 1999 to 2024. So my question would be to Governor Scott. Do you believe this mandate is even legal, number one? And do you believe that you agree with it? And then are you just afraid of potential consequences? And I really am leaning toward the latter. I think we know where I would probably stand on the Secretary of Education. I'm going to concentrate for just a moment on history. The lack of teaching about anything other than white history is already an issue in Vermont schools. I'm putting a DEI label on it has suddenly now become a negative connotation. And these days, I also will despise calling things DEI just to make white people more comfortable. But please hear me out. It's not about making white people more comfortable. It really is about equity. We've never been able to seem to even teach history, that there is white history, there's Black history, there's Latinx history, there's immigrant history. And history is written by the victors, and this today will be written by the victors as well. It's also written by the people that have the time, the means, and are literate enough to write history. And my daughter was lucky enough, at that time her name was Christine Deely, I believe she's changed her surname now. At CBU, my daughter took Black history and went on and did an independent study in Black history. And today she's at Smith College as a government major and will go on to be a civil rights attorney. So yes, it does matter. So our curriculum is already lacking. Our support for our gay students is already lacking. And yes, one of our children is gay. I'm not going to reveal which one. One of them is. So she might be online. She would probably be like, Mom, you are so not eloquent about this. But she also served on the DEI board as a voting member at age 18 in Shelburne, Vermont. And I've told you what she's went on to do. It's about fairness. And I just can't believe this dystopia that I'm living in. I can't believe the setbacks we have. I can't believe our governor is crickets, is silent. And I'm mad as hell. I can say that because I'm not an educator. You're not going to see me teach anybody's kid. Because I'm not that mama. I've paid property tax here. I've had a gay child in school. I have a child that's now at Smith College. And like I said, I am damn proud of her. And I had a child that went through an IEP. So I've met so many good teachers. I can't believe that Vermont is going to drop the ball on it. And Bill Scott, speak up.
I have the decidedly unpleasant task of probably saying we have room for one more. Not because I desire to shut down the conversation. But again, what I would encourage folks to do, if you have not already, is to share your perspective with the secretary. And I'm sure that some folks have. Again, our hope was to give some voice to these conversations. I understand that this is only dipping our toe in it. And I don't remember whose hand was on that. I'm gonna ask someone in the audience to maybe.
I just have a very quick comment, which is.
Minus what you
letters, etc., would send them to the Secretary of Education, send them to the governor, and please send letters to the editors, get this published in the paper, so this is out there for everybody. You guys are that.
My name is Claire Bates. I'm a mental health counselor in Randolph, Vermont, and I work with about 2/3 of my clients are kids and teens. I used to work in the school district there as well. So I would like to raise again something that I answered for one of our earlier questions this evening about what is it that you really want students in Vermont to take away from their educational experience. And my answer was to be autonomous thinkers and to be able to like think in the moment in a creative way with whatever problem is presented to you. And I think that that is the sort of thinking that's going to help our Vermont learners to survive whatever challenges are ahead of them in the coming decades, nationally and beyond. And I think giving them this precedent of like, oh, we're gonna bow to whatever we're told we can't teach you, or we can teach you, like, we're gonna limit your thinking in that way. And then like others have said, what comes next? We don't know what limit comes next, but we're literally saying that it isn't the most important thing for our Vermont learners to be independent thinkers, that we're saying it's okay for your thinking to be cramped. So that is my 2 cents as a mental health worker with kids who learn in this.
So, again, does any commission member other than me want to talk? Because I don't need to. Jeff, go for
I
it.
was gonna ask this person to go for it.
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you to the students, because if they represent what we have been doing.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
And message. Thank you for that. We really appreciate folks coming out. Again, this is not the only opportunity. We hope to have more and different kinds and ways that are more accessible, and so we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.